Is that a pet or a snack? The alien raider, a hulking beast with a dozen eyes and fangs as long as a man's forearm, stared at the tiny creature in the holding cell. The other raiders crowded around, their guttural laughter echoing through the ship's steel corridors. The tiny creature, no taller than a loaf of bread, had a set of delicate wings folded against its back and bright, intelligent eyes that watched the aliens with a mixture of curiosity and annoyance. This was Tilk, a member of the diminutive but highly intelligent species known as the Pans. Alone, Tilk looked anything but threatening, especially surrounded by the towering armored raiders of the Eeks clan. The raiders continued their mockery, jostling each other and making crude jokes at Tilk's expense. "Did you see how it fluttered when we captured it? Like a bug in a jar," one jeered. "Maybe we should squash it and put it out of its misery," another suggested, making a show of raising his massive boot. Tilk, who had been silent up to this point, finally spoke. His voice, though small, carried a surprising weight of authority. "I would advise against that. My partner's on his way." The raiders paused, their laughter dying down as they processed this unexpected declaration. Then the leader of the group, a particularly massive Jethro with a scar running down one side of his face, stepped forward. "And who might this partner be?" "Another insect, or perhaps a child. You Pans are known for your flights of fancy." Tilk's eyes narrowed slightly. "My partner is human." This statement elicited another round of laughter, even louder than before. Humans, despite their technological advancements and strategic prowess, were still considered weak by many species, especially the battle-hardened Jethro. They were seen as fragile, emotionally volatile, and overly reliant on their machines. "A human?" The scarred leader chuckled. "Is he coming to negotiate your release? Or perhaps he's bringing you a cozy little cage to live in?" Before Tilk could respond, another raider interjected. "Maybe he's bringing you a bedtime story, little bug." "What will you do when he realizes you're just a helpless little thing?" Tilk remained calm, his gaze unwavering. "You underestimate humans at your own peril. Captain Hayes is not one to be trifled with." The raiders exchanged glances, their amusement tinged with a hint of unease. The Jethro were not accustomed to being challenged, especially not by someone as seemingly insignificant as Tilk. They thrived on fear and intimidation, and the tiny Pan's calm confidence was unsettling. "Enough of this nonsense," the scarred leader growled. "Take him to the brig. We'll see if his human friend is foolish enough to try and rescue him." Two raiders stepped forward and roughly grabbed Tilk, dragging him out of the holding cell and down the corridor. Tilk did not resist, knowing that any struggle would be futile. Instead, he focused on maintaining a mental link with Captain Hayes, ensuring his partner was aware of the situation. As they moved through the dimly lit corridors of the raiders' ship, the Jethro continued to mock Tilk. "How does it feel to be the weakest creature in the galaxy, bug?" One of them sneered, giving him a rough shove. "Do you think your human will come running to save you? Maybe he's too scared to face us," another taunted. Tilk didn't respond. He knew that Captain Hayes would come, and when he did, the raiders would regret their arrogance. But for now, he had to endure their taunts and wait for the right moment. They reached the brig, a small, dark room with reinforced walls and a single cell. The raiders threw Tilk inside and locked the door, laughing as they left him alone. Tilk sat down calmly, closing his eyes and focusing his mind. He needed to stay connected with Hayes to let him know he was still alive and waiting. Meanwhile, the raiders gathered in their command center, discussing their next move. The scarred leader paced back and forth, his mind racing with possibilities. "If this human does come, we'll use him as leverage. The coalition will pay a high price for one of their precious captains." One of the other raiders, a lean reptilian creature with piercing yellow eyes, spoke up. "And if he doesn't come?" "What then?" "Then we dispose of the bug and move on," the leader replied, his voice cold and ruthless. "Either way, we win." Back in the brig, Tilk remained composed. He could sense Hayes getting closer, his partner's determination and resolve giving him strength. The bond between them was strong, forged through countless missions and shared dangers. Tilk knew that Hayes would not rest until he was safe. Suddenly, the ship shuddered as alarms blared throughout the corridors. The raiders tensed, their previous bravado replaced by a sudden sense of urgency. "What's happening?" one of them barked. "Unidentified Vess. L approaching," a voice crackled over the intercom. Weapon systems active. The Scar Leader's eyes narrowed. So the human has arrived. Let's see if he's as formidable as the bug claims. As the raiders scrambled to their stations, the atmosphere on the ship shifted from one of mocking amusement to tense anticipation. The real battle was about to begin, and Tilk knew that soon the raiders would learn the true meaning of fear. The raider ship shuddered again, this time with more intensity, as the approaching vessel's weapons continued their assault. The alarms blared louder, their urgent wails mingling with the frantic shouts of the raiders as they hurried to their battle stations. In the brig, Tilk could feel the vibrations through the cold metal floor. He opened his eyes, a faint smile playing at the corners of his mouth. Hayes was here, and things were about to get very interesting. The raider leader, now visibly agitated, stormed into the command center, barking orders. Get our defenses online. I want that ship destroyed before it breaches our hull. But sir, one of the technicians stammered, the craft is too fast. Our targeting systems can't lock onto it. The leader's eyes blazed with fury. Then shoot everything we've got. I want that ship turned into scrap. Outside, the sleek black spacecraft known as the Mantis darted through the void with incredible agility. Its angular design and advanced technology made it a formidable opponent. Inside the cockpit, Captain Jonathan Hayes maintained a steel focus, his hands moving deftly over the controls. Computer, status report, Hayes commanded. Shields at 80%. Weapon systems fully operational, the computer responded in its calm, synthesized voice. Good, keep the pressure on. We need to create an opening for boarding, Hayes said, his voice cold and determined. The Mantis fired another barrage of laser blasts, targeting the raider ship's weapon arrays. Explosions erupted along the vessel's surface, sending fragments of metal spiraling into space. Inside, the raiders struggled to maintain control as the ship rocked violently. The leader's frustration reached a boiling point. Prepare a boarding party. If that human wants a fight, we'll give him one, he snarled. Back in the brig, Tilk felt a sharp spike of anxiety from Hayes through their mental link. Jonathan, they're preparing to board. You be careful, Tilk communicated telepathically. I've got it under control, Tilk. Just sit tight. I'm coming for you, Hayes replied, his mental voice reassuring despite the chaos. As the Mantis continued its relentless assault, a docking tube extended from the raider ship, latching onto the smaller craft with a metallic clank. The raiders, armed to the teeth, gathered at the entry point, ready to storm the vessel and capture the audacious human inside. Inside the Mantis, Hayes took a deep breath, steeling himself for the imminent confrontation. He activated the internal defenses, a series of automated turrets and traps designed to neutralize intruders. The airlock hissed open, and the first wave of raiders poured in, weapons drawn and faces twisted with anticipation. The Mantis' internal defenses sprang to life. Turrets emerged from hidden compartments, unleashing a hail of bullets and laser fire upon the invaders. The raiders, caught off guard, scrambled for cover, their initial confidence replaced by confusion and fear. Hayes moved with the precision and grace of a seasoned warrior. His blaster fired in rapid succession, each shot finding its mark. He navigated the narrow corridors of his ship with ease, using the environment to his advantage. The raiders, despite their numbers and brute strength, were no match for his skill and strategy. The leader of the raiders, watching the carnage unfold from the command center, clenched his fists in frustration. Fall back! Regroup at the secondary entry point, he ordered, his voice tinged with desperation. As the raiders retreated, Hayes took a moment to assess the situation. The Mantis had taken some damage, but it was still operational. More importantly, he had bought himself some time. He needed to act quickly if he was going to rescue Tilk and get out of this alive. Tilk, I'm making my way to you. Hold on, Hayes communicated through their mental link. I'll be ready, Tilk replied, his voice steady and calm. Hayes navigated his way through the raider ship, moving with purpose and determination. He encountered pockets of resistance along the way, but his training and experience served him well. The raiders, for all their bravado, were ill-prepared for a human opponent of Hayes' caliber. Finally, Hayes reached the brig. He quickly dispatched the guards stationed outside, his blaster flashing in the dim light. The door to Tilk's cell slid open, revealing the diminutive Pan sitting calmly inside. Took you low. Ain't enough, Tilk said, a hint of amusement in his voice. Traffic was a nightmare, Hayes replied, extending a hand to his partner. Tilk climbed onto Hayes' shoulder, his wings fluttering slightly as he settled into place. "Let's get out of here," Tilk said, his tone serious once more. The two of them made their way back to the Mantis, encountering more resistance along the way. Hayes fought with a ferocity that left the raiders reeling, his every move calculated and precise. Tilk, though small, provided invaluable support, using his telepathic abilities to anticipate the raiders' actions and relay critical information to Hayes. By the time they reached the Mantis, the raider ship was in disarray. Fires raged in the corridors, and the alarms blared incessantly. The raiders, realizing they were outmatched, had begun to abandon ship, retreating to escape pods in a desperate bid to save themselves. Hayes and Tilk boarded the Mantis and quickly disengaged from the raider ship. The sleek craft sped away, leaving the crippled vessel behind. As they entered the relative safety of open space, Hayes leaned back in his chair and let out a sigh of relief. "That was close," he said, glancing at Tilk. "Too close," Tilk agreed. "But we made it, and the raiders learned an important lesson today." "Yeah," Hayes said with a grin. "Never underestimate a human, and never underestimate a pan," Tilk added, his eyes sparkling with amusement. The two of them shared a moment of quiet camaraderie as the Mantis sped away, leaving the chaos of the raider ship far behind. They were an unlikely duo, but together, they were unstoppable.